All right, hello and welcome to this training. As you can see from the title, what we're going to be covering today is the law of reversal and using opposites to manifest faster. And as you can see from the overview, what we're going to be talking about more specifically is the quantum mirror, polarity, inversion, harmony, the review, and your action items for the day or the next few days. So without further ado, let's get started and talk about the quantum mirror. So in quantum physics, there's a rule called wave-particle duality, and it basically describes how light, electrons, and even entire atoms can exist in two completely different states at once. And when observed, they behave like waves, spread out, fluid, existing everywhere and nowhere at the same time. But the instant you actually measure or look at them, the wave collapses into a particle, something solid, defined, and local. In other words, you can basically argue that the act of observation doesn't just reveal reality, it basically creates it. And so the observer and the observed are entangled in the same event. There's this famous double-slit experiment that basically revealed this madness in the early 1900s. Basically, scientists fired electrons at a metal plate with two tiny slits, expecting them to behave like bullets. Instead, they produced a wave-like interference pattern, proof that each electron passed through both slits simultaneously. But when researchers added a detector to basically watch which slit it actually went through, the pattern vanished, and the electrons suddenly acted like individual particles again. Merely observing them basically changed the outcome. And reality literally reorganized itself depending on attention. The discovery shattered classical physics. It meant that the universe wasn't a collection of fixed things. It was more so a field of possibilities waiting for consciousness to choose which version would solidify. And so the deeper scientists looked, the fuzzier things actually became. Particles dissolved into probabilities, location dissolved into relationships, and the one variable that consistently altered reality wasn't matter or energy, it was observation. And at the subatomic level, awareness is an active ingredient in creation. It's as if existence needs you to look before it decides what it will be. And so the same rule governs your psychology. When you fixate on failure, it becomes an identity. When you observe fear without necessarily clinging to it, it stays a wave, just energy passing through. And every emotion, belief, or event in your life exists in both forms, wave and particle, potential and manifestation. Now, the moment you define something too tightly with phrases like "this is who I am," or "this is how it always goes," you collapse the wave. You freeze a fluid probability into a rigid fact. And the irony is that the more you really try to control reality by labeling it, the less room it has to move. So look at any major transformation you've actually gone through in your life. There was most likely a moment of confusion, loss, or uncertainty that basically felt unbearable at the time. That was the wave state, the space before definition. Then at some point, you named it. You said, this means growth, or this means I'm done with who I used to be. And instantly, your energy basically shifted. The story you told about the chaos determined what it became. You didn't change because the situation changed. You changed because your observation changed the situation, and you collapsed a new version of yourself into being. And this dance between wave and particle happens everywhere. The blank page is the wave, the written sentence is the particle. Brainstorming is the wave, execution is particle. Attraction is wave, commitment is particle. The wave shows up as potential energy, basically emotions, impulses, ideas. The particle is the behavior that follows. Now, mastery isn't about choosing one over the other. It's about learning when to stay open and when to collapse, when to observe and when to define, when to be possibility and when to become form. So most people never realize they're doing quantum physics with their emotions. They react too soon, define too early, and solidify patterns that were meant to stay fluid. Then they basically keep collapsing the same version of themselves over and over. But the ones who rise, the ones who reinvent, attract, and manifest, learn to pause before collapse. They hold the wave a little longer. They can look at pain without turning it into identity, and they can experience failure without making it final. And they live at the intersection where reality is still malleable. That's exactly what this training will unlock for you. The law of reversal, or what we'll later call polarity shifting, is the psychological application of wave-particle duality. It teaches you how to turn fixed outcomes back into fluid potential, how to alchemize one pole into the other. Success and failure, pleasure and pain, light and shadow are simply different observations of the same wave. And when you master this movement between opposites, you stop being a passive observer and start acting as a conscious creator. And so the universe isn't hiding its rules, it's demonstrating them in every moment. And this training will basically show you how to use them deliberately. With that being said, let's talk about polarity. Look, everything in life comes in pairs. Every experience, emotion, or outcome has its opposite sitting right beside it. And you probably already know the Kybalion, but if you haven't heard of it, it is basically a book from 1908 that presents 7 Hermetic principles, basically ancient philosophical teachings that are attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, if I said his name right. One of its core ideas is the principle of polarity, which states that everything has 2 poles, and opposites are identical in nature but different in degree. Heat and cold, love and hate, success and failure aren't necessarily separate things. They're the same thing showing up in different degrees of the same spectrum. Now, once you start seeing it this way, life gets a bit lighter. You stop fighting bad moments and you start recognizing that they're part of the same system that produces the good ones. And it's all connected. So when something goes wrong, you pause for a second and remember that the opposite is already contained within what you're facing. Every setback carries the vibration of a breakthrough hidden inside it. And that failure you're spiraling over today is the same energy that will fuel your future success once it flips polarity. And so once that clicks, you'll stop reacting emotionally. You'll start reading every event as feedback. Now, imagine this principle as a spectrum. There's no real line separating fear from courage. There's only movement between them. Same for abundance and scarcity, or love and indifference. You're always standing somewhere along that line. So instead of trying to destroy one pole, learn to move along the scale. Small shifts in perception will move you faster than these big bursts of effort ever could. So here's how it plays out. When you resist one pole, you actually charge it with energy. The person who hates failure keeps reliving it because their focus keeps feeding that vibration. Once you stop resisting, the energy will basically balance itself out and you'll drift towards the other end naturally. The less you fight, the smoother it flows. And so you need to start catching yourself in the middle of that resistance. Awareness breaks the automatic swing. You'll notice that just observing the feeling will actually loosen its hold immediately. And so from there, you'll start seeing how neutrality isn't indifference, it's actually control. When you're neutral, you're steering. You're no longer being tossed around by emotion, you're the one adjusting the dial. You always have a choice about where you place your attention. When you realize that fear and faith share the same mind, you'll basically stop being a victim of your mood and you'll start deciding which pole to energize. The more deliberate you get about that, the more consistent your results become. So keep reminding yourself that movement starts inside first. The thought comes before the shift, and the shift comes before the evidence. If you tune your mind higher, your world will catch up. Now, once momentum builds, life starts meeting you halfway. People, chances, and ideas will basically start showing up because they're responding to the pole you've chosen to occupy. So imagine someone trying to manifest confidence, but feeling insecure. They think that they need to kill the insecurity. They try to fake it, bury it, hide it, but that energy doesn't disappear. It just multiplies. When they stop fighting it and simply notice that insecurity is just the early stage of confidence forming, everything softens and that self-judgment fades and genuine confidence starts actually rising naturally. That's polarity at work. One pole always gives birth to the other once you stop resisting it. So once you understand polarity, life starts feeling a lot less chaotic. You'll stop freaking out when things swing in the opposite direction because you'll know it's temporary and the pendulum always balances itself out. The less attached you get to one extreme, the faster you'll find yourself at peace. Neutrality speeds up manifestation because nothing is clogging the signal anymore. Now, to make this a bit more practical, when something goes sideways, don't immediately react. Instead, name its opposite and do one tiny action that represents that new frequency. If you're feeling small, straighten your posture and speak with authority, even if your voice shakes. If you're broke, give something away. Those small acts basically tell your subconscious that you're living at the other end now. And keep repeating that until it becomes second nature. Over time, you'll start to appreciate both sides. You'll realize light means nothing without darkness, and that your drive came from the friction of frustration. You'll stop labeling emotions as good or bad and actually start using them as signals. And that's when you become emotionally unshakable. You'll flow with contrast instead of fighting it, and everything around you will start feeling easier. Now, what you could do is take a second each night to check where you stood on your scales. Basically, were you confident or doubtful, open or guarded, grateful or bitter? Just notice and don't judge. And you'll start seeing patterns that show where your energy hangs out most. And once you know that, you'll know exactly what to tweak to shift your vibration higher. As you keep doing this, your understanding of polarity will actually deepen, and you'll stop seeing problems as threats and start seeing them as tools, and you'll interpret life less emotionally and more strategically. Your emotions won't control your actions anymore. Your awareness will. And that's when you start creating reality on purpose, not by accident. So eventually you'll reach a point where you can flip any situation by choice. You'll use the same energy that once drained you to propel you forward. And you'll take the heaviness of contrast and turn it into jet fuel for progress. That's when polarity stops being theory and actually becomes alchemy. When you don't just understand the law, and instead you actually use it. So with that being said, let's talk about inversion. So polarity gives you awareness, but inversion gives you control. Once you know that every experience has an opposite built into it, the next step is really learning how to flip those states consciously. That's what alchemy really is, turning one vibration into another. It's not about avoiding darkness, it's about understanding how to move through it so it transforms into power. When you master inversion, you'll never feel stuck again, because every limitation becomes raw material for expansion. So the main idea here is that inversion is the act of consciously moving towards the energetic opposite of what you're currently experiencing. It's the practical side of the law of reversal. When you feel fear, you lean into courage. When you feel scarcity, you create generosity. The action doesn't deny what's there, it just redirects it. This is how you start working with energy instead of fighting against it. The more you do this, the faster your reality starts flipping to match your intention. Now, most people try to manifest by pushing harder for what they want, but that keeps them trapped in the same polarity. You can't chase abundance from a mindset that screams lack, because that action amplifies the vibration that you're actually trying to escape. So instead, inversion says, stop reinforcing the energy you dislike and start embodying the opposite now, before the external proof appears. So the inner state will always lead the outer condition. First, notice the dominant feeling or story that's active inside you. The emotion is your indicator of which pole you're currently standing on. The faster you identify it, the faster you can actually flip it. And look at it directly without denial. If you're anxious, just say it. If you're angry, just feel it. Suppression will freeze that energy. Acknowledgement actually moves it. And so once you name the feeling, you'll notice that its opposite will instantly appear in your awareness. The human mind always generates duality. It can't help but see the other side once you name one. And so after that, you just move towards the opposite quality in small, grounded ways. You don't just think about courage, act as if courage has already arrived. Take one bold step while fear is still present, and the energy will start to rewire. This could be as simple as reaching out to someone you've been avoiding or saying the thing that you've been rehearsing silently. Action will invert emotion faster than thought ever could. When you behave like the opposite is already real, your subconscious will basically recalibrate its identity. You'll literally start becoming the new pole. Now, to make inversion part of your daily toolkit, start small. When you feel stuck in resistance, just pause yourself and ask, what's the exact opposite of what I'm doing right now? So if you're procrastinating, take a single small action. If you're tense, just try to relax your body. The trick is to build momentum towards the new state, one micro shift at a time. Over days, that will build emotional muscle memory. Let's say you're going through heartbreak. Instead of drowning in sadness, you apply inversion. You sit with the pain until it reveals what it's actually teaching you. It could be self-respect, independence, deeper love, or something else. Then you act from that insight. You create, you move, you rebuild. Slowly, the same energy that felt like a loss becomes the foundation of your power and the foundation of gain. Pain doesn't disappear, it just changes the polarity. And so there are a few simple ways to strengthen your ability to actually invert energy quickly. First, your breath. Your breath will always flip your nervous system's polarity first. When you're panicked, exhale longer than you inhale. It tells your body that the danger is over, which opens the doorway for a new emotion to form. Then it's your language and your words. Your words are polarity switches. When you catch yourself saying, I can't, replace it with, I'm learning to. And the shift might sound subtle, but it rewires the expectation that shapes your actions. The next one is movement. The body never lies. And so change your posture, walk faster, lift your chest. Those micro shifts in physiology will actually shift your chemistry instantly. You'll feel the energy reverse before you even think about it. Now, here's the thing. The more you practice inversion, the more you'll see how perception controls polarity. Reality itself won't change at first. Your viewpoint will. And you'll look at something painful and suddenly see potential. And you'll look at rejection and sense redirection. That perceptual flip is the moment reality begins to reorganize around you. So over time, inversion will stop feeling like a technique and start feeling like instinct. You'll respond to resistance with curiosity instead of avoidance, and you'll get excited when problems show up because you know they're carrying the opposite frequency of what you've asked for. Every shadow will become an entry point into light. And that's when manifestation accelerates dramatically because you're no longer fighting contrast. You're using it as leverage. Now, keep in mind, the more you live by inversion, the less emotionally extreme your life will become. You'll stabilize faster after shocks. And a lot of people actually love the emotional extremes and the emotional up and downs. They're actually addicted to them a lot of the times. And if you understand inversion, you won't be. And so you'll recover quicker from loss. You'll start seeing success, failure, pain, joy, and love as parts of one movement. The same current running in both directions. That inner balance will actually make you magnetic, peaceful, and incredibly efficient. And eventually, once you get comfortable flipping energy on demand, you'll reach a deeper level. One where you no longer really need to switch poles at all because you can hold both simultaneously. You'll stop thinking in terms of duality and start operating from unity, where opposites merge and creation happens almost instantly. That's the next step in the process where manifestation becomes effortless. So let's talk about harmony. Now, polarity gives you awareness and inversion gives you control, but harmony gives you peace. Harmony is what happens when you stop trying to swing between extremes and start holding both sides of reality at once. It's where true manifestation really happens, not in chaos or in conflict, but in coherence. When your mind, emotions, and energy stop fighting themselves, the universe stops resisting you. You'll stop creating through friction and start creating through flow. The real point of all of this, isn't really to live on one pole or the other, but to merge them. You'll realize that joy and pain, light and shadow, confidence and doubt, all belong to one complete whole. When you stop trying to fix one side and instead integrate it, you'll feel something click internally. And that click is the moment you stop fragmenting your energy. And from that moment on, everything you create will carry more weight, more coherence, and more speed. So harmony is really when your emotional state stays stable, no matter how wildly life moves around you. The steadiness can feel similar to indifference, but it's actually aligned neutrality. You're no longer being yanked by the opposites because you've dissolved the illusion of opposition itself. You'll still feel emotions fully, but they'll pass through you cleanly without leaving any residue. So this is where things start to get subtle. Stillness doesn't mean silence or lack of movement. It means internal calm, even when external circumstances shift. When your inner world stops reacting, your outer world starts obeying. And you'll notice that from this place, your decisions get sharper. You'll move faster, but with less effort. And because you're no longer clouded by polarity, clarity will rise naturally, and you'll see situations as they are without any emotional distortion. And as you hold that stillness, something pretty awesome happens. Your highs stop throwing you off, and your lows stop breaking you. You'll find that every experience has its own rhythm, and when you match that rhythm instead of fighting it, life starts to cooperate with you. The more you practice this, the more stable your energy becomes. You won't need to recover from setbacks because your baseline won't dip anymore. And that kind of balance will make your frequency magnetic. People will feel it before you can actually speak, and circumstances will align before you actually plan. Now, to reach this state, You've got to stop rejecting the parts of you that don't fit the image of who you think you should be. So real harmony starts with radical acceptance. You'll have to sit with your contradictions until you stop being scared of them. And you'll have to look at the chaos inside you and see that it's trying to return to order. And so once you stop suppressing parts of yourself, they'll integrate on their own. Here's how you do it in daily life. When a difficult emotion hits, don't try to just run from it and don't drown in it. Sit with it, breathe, and watch. Let it exist until it basically becomes soft. And then ask yourself, what message is this emotion actually carrying? The answer will come quietly, usually as a feeling of relief or insight. And that's harmony revealing itself, not through effort, but through allowance. So keep noticing the patterns. Every time you judge an emotion as negative, pause and trace its purpose. Anger often hides truth. Fear often hides care. And guilt often hides love. When you learn to read emotions instead of suppressing them, you'll become fluent in your own energy. And once you understand an emotion's role, you'll no longer resist it. It will dissolve naturally because you've listened to what it came to say. And that release will return your body and mind to flow, and that flow will pull your environment into harmony with you. So the reason harmony feels so magnetic is because it's deeply present. When you stop swinging between what was and what could be, you land in what is, and that's where creation actually happens instantly. Every moment of presence basically collapses polarity because it unites the timeline of the past, the future, the potential into now. And when you live here, manifestation speeds up because you're no longer split between directions. Harmony also means union with the shadow. You can't radiate light if you're terrified of the dark. So the most evolved version of you won't just tolerate contrast, it will love it. And when you can hold rage and peace in the same breath, you become whole. That wholeness is what ancient alchemists meant by the marriage of opposites. You'll stop chasing transformation and start embodying it. So picture this, you're stressed about money and old patterns of fear start coming up. Instead of drowning in anxiety, you actually pause, breathe, and observe the tension. You remember that fear and abundance are part of the same continuum. So you open your bank app, bless the numbers you see, and express gratitude for what's already there. Suddenly, your body relaxes. Within days, new opportunities appear. You take action because without action, nothing will happen. And things happen. That's basically harmony in action, a small energetic realignment that changes everything downstream. The more you live this way, the more consistent your manifestations become. And you'll notice fewer extremes, less burnout, fewer crashes, smoother growth. Harmony doesn't make life dull, it actually makes it symphonic. Everything moves in rhythm. Even challenges arrive on time to stretch you into a higher frequency, and life will start feeling orchestrated, like everything is playing together instead of against itself. Eventually, you'll understand that harmony isn't something you do, it's something you just become. And you'll stop needing to fix, force, or manage reality because reality will respond to your steadiness automatically. And when you're internally balanced, external balance follows as a reflex. This is the state mystics called the middle path and philosophers called the golden mean. It's where polarity dissolves into wholeness and creation happens in real time. And from this space of total alignment, something deeper will start to unfold, a level of creation that doesn't require time or tension at all. It's where the reversal completes itself and every opposite becomes one unified force. This is where true creation happens, quietly, instantly, and without any resistance. With that being said, here's what we covered. We talked about the quantum mirror, polarity, inversion, harmony, the review, and finally your action items for the day or the next few days. First, spend the next 7 days watching polarity in action and notice moments when life swings from good to bad, calm to tense, certain to uncertain. Instead of reacting, track your position on the spectrum. The more you observe without judgment, the faster you'll start seeing how both ends belong to one process. When something feels heavy, practice the flip. Catch yourself in fear, frustration, or lack and ask yourself, what's the opposite of this state? And then take one small action that embodies the opposite. A single reversal done with awareness will begin reprogramming your entire energetic response pattern. And then finally, end each day with 5 quiet minutes of reflection. Review what you resisted, what you accepted, and what you transformed. And let your body relax into neutrality as you breathe out the day's polarity. And over time, you'll notice fewer extremes and more flow. Proof that harmony is starting to take root in your system. With that being said, thank you for being here. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel for more, comment below what you'd like to see next. If you want to work with me personally, one-on-one, book a call from the second link in the description. And if you want this document along with this training, then click the first link in the description and join the free community. With that being said, again, thank you for being here, and I'm going to see you in the next one.